Is 2026 a good time to buy a home in the Denver metro area? Or has the dream of owning in the Mile High City become out of reach for the average buyer? Today, we look at the good, the bad, and the ugly of buying a home in the Denver metro area in 2026. Hello, I'm Dave Michael. I am the House Wrangler with You First Realty. I cover the Denver metro real estate market every week right here on this channel. So settle up as we look at the pros and cons of buying in the Denver area in 2026. Now, before we break down the pros and the cons, we need to understand what kind of market we're actually in because the answer might be a little bit more nuanced than maybe some of the headlines suggest. One of my colleagues put it this way after analyzing their own recent closings: more than half of their transactions played out like a buyer's market, where the buyers had leverage and they negotiated, their terms, favorable terms. The remainder were more like a seller situation where the seller had the upper hand. Now, personally, my buyers in 2026 have experienced a buyer's market. But on the list side or the sell side, my most recent seller, he experienced a seller's market where he had multiple offers for his home in the first 48 hours. That's great for him, right? So it can be situational, depending on location, depending on the home. But overall, I contend that we are largely still in a buyer's market where sellers are negotiating and offering concessions. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. So let's start with the pros of buying in the Denver metro area right here, right now in 2026. So pro number one, you have way more choices and more time than before. The single biggest advantage that buyers have right now when compared to previous years like 2019 or 2020 is that you have time and you have inventory. And as of the end of quarter one in 2026, we've had over 13,400 listings. That gives you significantly more options than in previous hyper competitive markets. Supply has pushed to over 3 months, and buyers have more room to negotiate. So what does that mean practically? Let's just get down to it. It means that you can tour a home, you can tour more than once. You can think about it for a day with maybe out losing it to six other offers. And that alone just makes the process just a little bit better than maybe what buyers were dealing with back in 2020, 2021. Now, pro number two. Sellers are absolutely negotiating. I just mentioned, my buyers getting concessions. And when inventory is up like this, sellers compete for your attention. And they give what's called concessions, which is basically cash credit to help you buy down the interest rate, to help you with closing costs. And like I mentioned, all my buyers have received anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. But the key is you have to have an agent who writes this in the contract, the purchase offer, and fights for you. So you do have concessions coming to you, covering closing costs, helping with the interest rate buy down. These are things that are going on right now in this market that we haven't had in years past. Now, pro number three, prices are stable and they're not really surging. So if you were concerned about buying a home in 2020 or 2021 because you were concerned or worried about overpaying at the peak, well, that's a little bit more manageable today because home prices have been relatively flat for the last 3 years, and interest rates have been relatively the same, in the low to mid sixes. And so people need actually know how to calculate these monthly payments now and know what to expect. And then prices are projected to grow, but only grow modestly nationally. And Denver specifically, appreciation is happening, but it's a little bit slow and it's a little bit measured. So you're not walking into like a market where all of a sudden it's going to spike dramatically in the next 6 months. All right. So pro number four, long-term equity is still it's very real here in Denver. Okay. And here's the big picture argument for buying right now that sometimes maybe gets lost in the conversation. Denver's long-term fundamentals are very strong, with a price to rent ratio suggesting that buying may offer long-term equity advantages for those who can afford the down payment, and with a median home values projected to appreciate in 2026, at least modestly. Denver real estate, continues to offer nice appreciation potential without overheating, as seen in maybe previous years where you might get to a bubble. There was one homeowner, talked about how in Denver maybe 12 years ago when they bought, they noted that they paid triple what the previous owner had paid, but during their 12 years, they actually accumulated nice equity. So it's not a get rich, thing. It's just steady appreciation at a modest rate. All right. And so that's another reason maybe to look at buying now. Now, pro number 5, pent up demand means that future appreciation is absolutely likely. So if you buy now, you're not going to get caught into when buyers come off the sidelines, because there is this idea of buyers waiting until interest rates drop. And so if interest rates drop and you're buying now and you have home appreciation, that would be a pro of buying now, because you're going to experience that appreciation when that demand gets released, whether it due to rates dropping. That's probably going to be the number one factor that really moves the needle. But sometimes people on individual situations just decide to move forward. But either way, if you buy now, you're going to experience that ride up, which could give you more equity. So that would be an advantage of buying right now in this market. So those are some of the pros for buying. But what about the cons or the challenges, right, about buying in Denver? Well, let's go ahead and jump into that, and let's talk about some of these challenges. Con number 1, affordability is still a very real problem and a very real issue here in the Denver metro area. So let's just be direct about this, because I talk about a buyer's market, right? And if you see me in other videos, I'll talk about that as well. But maybe, people can hear that and think, oh, well, that means that's affordable. Well, it means that we can get seller concessions for you, but it's still expensive here. And we have to understand all the nuances with that. So when we use an example of like a 30-year fixed mortgage at, say, 6.14%, a 5% down payment, you've got to include mortgage insurance, you've got to use property taxes, homeowners insurance, all of that, and you have a median priced home, that which is about $560,000, that's going to come out to almost $4,000 a month, which is way more than the conventional affordable guidelines. It's around 45%. And the conventional lending guidelines, they actually say that you should pay no more than 31% of your gross monthly income. But at 45%, maybe the median price Denver home might be out of range for a median income household. And that's not necessarily a comfortable market for first-time home buyers unless they have significant savings or they have really a higher paying job. And we do have access to down payment assistance programs, the Colorado Housing Finance Authority, but that's something to consider. Now, another con is that interest rates. Interest rates are not going to necessarily save any of us. And if you're waiting for interest rates to drop, that strategy has real risks, especially given the economic, markers such as higher than anticipated inflation, geopolitical tensions. You have oil and energy costs, and so we're looking at interest rates staying probably in the 6% range through the end of the year. But here's the trap: if rates do drop, as we mentioned before, then all that pent-up demand comes off the sidelines, and all of a sudden now you're competing at a higher price. So don't buy thinking it's going to drop. Buy because you're content with your monthly payments. So con number 3, in terms of, and this one's not talked about enough a lot, is that homeowners insurance is very expensive. Homeowners insurance premium in Colorado is now over $4,000 a year. Now that represents a 137% increase over the past decade. And that's due to Colorado in terms of like wildfire risks, hail that we get a lot out here. But the practical impact is real to, say, a buyer who's approved for a $2,500 a month mortgage housing payment. And they've budgeted for maybe $150 a month for homeowners insurance, but then they realize it's going to be $300, $350, maybe $400. And all of a sudden now that doesn't work for them, because where's that extra money going to come from? So my recommendation is that if you're looking at a house and we're looking out there together, let's run some quotes on what that would cost. So that way, in terms of your homeowner's insurance per month, that way I know what to ask for in terms of, do we ask for more concessions to maybe get it better, lower down the interest rate to account for that homeowner's insurance. But we can do that as we work together. Con number 4, the HOA, Homeowners Association. And so those are fees and assessments continue to rise. So if you're buying a condo or a townhome or just really any home in an HOA community, and in Colorado, 43% of occupied homes are in community association. That's the second highest percentage in the country. So we need to absolutely look at the HOA and make sure that they're not planning on raising those rates. And so that we'll have to do our due diligence. We'll do that together, and we'll make sure that we talk with the HOA and that we're not caught off guard by any type of assessments or anything of that nature. So ultimately, here's the question. Should you buy a home in the Denver metro area in 2026? Well, if your finances are solid, if you plan to stay for at least 5 to maybe 7 years, and if you're buying in a price range where it makes sense to your budget and your monthly payment, this is probably one of the more rational windows that we've seen in several years, simply because I keep coming back to seller concessions for sure. But we can't ignore all the other costs, whether it be the HOA, homeowners association, whether it be the homeowners insurance, we can't ignore that. So it's wise to run a full monthly cost calculation, and we look at the numbers so it makes sense to you, and we account for everything. So if any of this resonated with you and you're thinking about buying a home this year, I'd absolutely love to help you out. So whether you're buying your first home, whether you're selling your existing home to downsize or to upsize, or maybe you're buying an investment property. I've lived in the Denver metro area for over 18 years, and I can help you navigate this market. So keep in mind, if you allow me to represent you in buying your new home, I'm going to be giving you a $1,000 credit to help you with closing costs or to buy down that interest rate. And then I'm also going to be buying you a 1-year home warranty that runs around $575 to $600. And if you don't want the home warranty, we'll just add that $600 on top to give you almost $1,600 just to be able to be your agent. And that will help you, hopefully be able to help you buy down those interest rates and help you with closing costs. Hey, drop a comment below and tell me, what part of the Denver metro area are you looking at buying or looking at to buy your new home? I read every single comment. And if you did find this video helpful, hit that like button, because it really does help people find this type of content. I'm Dave Michael. I am the House Wrangler with You First Realty. Subscribe for more Denver metro area real estate videos each and every week. So until next time, happy trails.